All right, good evening, fellow Protectors. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. I'm Greg LaBeouf, got Dustin Dotery with me, Brad Vandalite with me, and welcome again, like I said, to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast, where we're sharing the journey of what it was for us, and what it is for many men to go from zero to formidable, formidable to tactical, and tactical to surgical, and live the life of a Protector. So tonight's episode is let me start it this way. More and more Canadians are kind of waking up to the unprecedented levels of violence that we're experiencing here in Canada, right? That's all across Canada. And what is happening because more and more Canadians are waking up to this unprecedented violence, that is sparking a national conversation on self defense, unlike anything that we've had in this country before. And it's pretty profound because more and more Canadians, more and more people are tuning into the reality, the physical reality, that whether it is home invasions, assaults, or murders, if somebody wants to kill you, if somebody wants to shoot you, if somebody wants to steal your possessions, whatever it happens to be, if someone wants to engage with violent criminal activity, the thing that is becoming super fucking clear is that the government is in no position to stop them. So if somebody comes to murder you, or somebody comes to assault you, or somebody comes to rape you, or somebody comes to steal your stuff, the government is in zero position to stop them. The police are also not in a position to stop them. They are powerless to prevent these types of crimes. So that leaves you, and you are the only one that can do it because you're the fucking only one that's there, and that is the physical reality that more and more Canadians are turning into. So I think it's easy to see why this is sparking a national conversation. The other thing that I'd want to say in the setup to this is that this conversation that's being had, it was not that long ago that the idea, and so much, it was not that long ago, and the idea is still very prevalent today among Canadians, but the idea that you can protect yourself, your family, from murder, assault, or theft, separate from the police, has long been considered a very hysterical conversation, almost paranoid based. And again, because of what is happening all across Canada, because of these unprecedented levels, this is the national conversation that I'm talking about. People that would never have talked about this, people that just, they didn't want to admit this, are now starting to have conversations about self-defense. So this conversation on a national level about protecting yourself and your family separate from the police, being your own true first responder here in Canada, is no longer a paranoid, hysterical conversation. Meaning that there are people in this world, there are people in Canada that do not want people to have this conversation. They do not want the average person to feel empowered to be able to protect themselves separate from the police, separate from government, all that type of stuff. But it is now no longer can it be rationalized away. So no matter how one side somebody is, it is so hard now to rationalize or justify people away from having this conversation. So I titled tonight's episode Canada's Concealed Carry, because this is often at the center of this national conversation when it does come to protecting yourself separate from the police. Often what you hear is the big push for concealed carry. This is also happening at a time when, for all intents and purposes, they are pushing harder to restrict firearms and firearm ownership. And in Canada, we do not have the right to defend ourselves with a firearm. I mean, Justin Trudeau was just on an American podcast not that long ago where he was basically the tonality of how he was saying it was almost bragging that in Canada you do not have a right to defend your life with a firearm. And he was extremely, extremely proud of this fact. And again, this is just more things that are contributing to this national conversation. Now, this unprecedented levels of violence and all this stuff, it is happening for many, many reasons, and it would be very easy right now to just turn this into a political debate and start talking about all the different reasons as to why we are where we are. But that is not what we do in this podcast. That is not what we are going to do. What we want to do and what I want to do is put forth some viable solutions for the imminent problem, the problem that we're facing right now, which is the levels of violence that are happening, the type of violence, the levels, the intensity, and the frequency are all at unprecedented rates. We need to solve this problem as best we can right now. So us talking about all of the reasons that led us to get to this point, although very useful and necessary, is not what we're going to address tonight. So that was the setup for what we're going to do in this podcast. I think this is a very powerful episode. I titled it Canada's Concealed Carry. And we're going to jump to our intro. We're going to be back in a few minutes. And I highly recommend that people stick around and listen to the entirety of this program, because there's going to be a lot of powerful information here. So hang with us back in a few seconds, and we're going to go deep into Canada's concealed carry. Every day I hear more stories of good health issues who is free to walk the streets in the same city where I live, work, and where I am raising my 2 daughters. Well, I'm tired of screaming at the TV and enough streets in our neighborhoods, on our public transportation system, outside the places we work, and even outside of our children's schools. My new mission is to create and train a group of men that believe in the right to life and value the freedom a man has to protect his life, his family, and his property. I'm Greg LeBoeuf. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. Okay. I had a bit longer of a priming the pump, a bit more of a setup. But I think it was good, and inevitably I'm going to repeat some of the points that I made in the intro to this, because I want to expand on those points. But I think that it was really important, and the gist of it, in case anyone just jumps on and is joining us right now, is that the unprecedented levels of violence that we're seeing here in Canada are just sparking a national conversation on self-defense and what that means. The concept of Canadian citizens being able to protect themselves and their families and their property from assault, murder, and theft, separate from the police, is now a very, very, again, before I think it was a very, people rationalized people away from that. They didn't want to have this conversation. And if you were having this conversation and talking about those things, it was almost labeled as a hysterical / paranoid, very unnecessary conversation. You were looked at upon as being very, very radical in your thinking potentially. Whereas now, with everything that's going on, not only is this not an unreasonable conversation, it is a very necessary conversation. Matter of fact, it is just now people are tuning in to the physical reality of what is happening in our country, what types of levels, the levels, the intensity, and the frequency of violence that we're facing. And so this conversation now is not only reasonable, but it is absolutely fucking necessary. So maybe because I did the setup, I just did a quick recap. If you guys want to jump in and just give me some of your visceral thoughts of what I said, let's do that. And then I'm going to then I'll hit us with our first kind of jump off point.
I have a little bit of a statement. You know what I haven't heard recently? Brad, why do you train, man? You're just fucking paranoid. You know what? Like, we've talked about this a lot. Like, how many conversations have we had in the years of doing this? Be like, come on, man. Like, you're just paranoid. And we've addressed that. We've talked about paranoia. And, so many people are like, well, I would just talk my way through that. I'm a good negotiator. I'm this, I'm that, and all blah, 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 blah. All these types of things. But I've never had anybody in the last 12 months being like, you're training? You're just paranoid.
Yeah.
People don't do that anymore because people are looking out their windows and people are looking in the newspapers and the news and seeing all the shit that's happening here in our country. And they're like, maybe I should have been training like Brad's been doing over the last 25 years because now I don't fucking know shit. And it's literally here. Now I say it's literally here. It's not like it wasn't here back then either.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah. We still had violent criminal assault But the perception, I think, of most people, good people in society, they see and now they understand because they can't deny it anymore. They
Yeah.
can't deny that these things are happening. And I
Yeah.
think that that's kind of like, a little bit of an opening statement for me because it's like I haven't heard nobody said shit to me about that.
Yeah. Well,
Last,
and just before Dustin jumps in, and that's exactly why I thought this was really important for us to talk about because, like you said before, to talk about training and share what you did and all that type of stuff, it's not like there was no violent crime, but there were so many more people. The Canadian mentality was much more that that's a hysterical point of view. That's a irrational, unnecessary, hysterical conversation where that
kind
has
of
completely changed. Yeah, yeah, and that has changed. Like, I mean, I see it. I feel I work in this business. I can. There is a massive difference when I'm talking to new prospects and people. It's different, and you're echoing that in your own life experience and stuff, which is really important for people to hear and for people to understand. Dustin, I want to let you get your say.
Yeah, just a comment about, in your intro, you talked about how like we're not here to get into a whole political debate about, things like concealed carry and all that stuff. And just kind of off of that, I think, for me, if I look at like, why I train and how long I've been training for, and it's like, for me, it's because like anything in life, when it comes to challenges, it's like, what do you do with challenges? What do you do when you're faced with a challenge? Whether it's business, family, relationships, violence, it doesn't even matter. It's like, because typically I think a lot of times, at least for me, the model is the same. And so when a challenge is put in front of me, like I have no interest in wasting any time in debating like whether or not I should have to deal with this challenge or whether or not it's fair that I'm facing the challenge. Like I don't have time for it because it's so ineffective. So for me, I'm like I'm an action guy. So it's like, oh, this is the challenge. Okay. And it's like, oh, I need to do this, 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 this. Like right away, it's mission demands, mission commands. Like that's how I operate,
Yeah.
whether it's violence or anything else. And so
Yeah.
I think with a lot of this stuff, when it comes to like personal, self-defense, personal protection, what should be allowed, way too many people get caught up and want to spend time in the debate. And not that that stuff isn't important. And we do need people in our society to fight for our rights. Like, don't get me wrong, we need it, but it ain't enough. You can't just do that. And then when you get what you want, be like, okay, now I'm actually going to start putting, boots to the ground, rubber to the road, and actually now take action. It's like, while all that stuff is happening, you also still have to be dealing with where you are today. And it's like right now, this is like figure it out, learn what are we allowed to do today, and you better be acting based on that. So for me, it's more about action and less about like all the debate and the politics and all that crap.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I love both of your guys' opening contributions to this conversation and stuff. And I said that I have a jump off point that I want to get into. And let me just reiterate I titled this Canada's Concealed Carry. And I'm just going to throw this concept out there because this already echoes what Brad said, what I said in the intro, what Brad reinforced, and Dustin, what you just said. So I'm just going to say this right now. Canada's concealed carry. Here's the concept that I have, right? We cannot think of concealed carry like the literal definition that most people have for it, which means to be able to legally carry a concealed firearm. Okay, so everyone knows that when we talk about concealed carry, that's what we're talking about. But the reality is that we don't have concealed carry here in Canada. Will we ever have it? I don't know. Right? In my lifetime, probably not. But should that be pushed and should that be fought for and should that be? Yes, of course. But the reality is we do not have that right now. But when I was thinking about this, and again, because this now national conversation is going on, and you actually have a good percentage of the Canadian population now unable to rationalize or deny this away. So this is going to become more of a political, kind of hot button. There is going to be changes. What way they go is the political game, right? Do we gain more rights back to defend ourselves in terms of the firearms or other laws, or do we stay where we're at, or do we in fact lose some more of our rights and freedoms? That's again its own conversation and topic. But what I would say is this, it's happening for a myriad of reasons, but here's what we do know. And you actually let me see if you guys agree with this. When you take away the right for people, the right for men to protect themselves and their families and their property, or you withhold the ability for them to protect, you are creating victims. Because the criminal element is doing what criminals do. They are undeterred, undaunted by the potential, ramifications of their actions. Now, there's always been a criminal element that simply didn't give a fuck if they were arrested and caught and tried and convicted and did jail time and everything else. I mean, how long has the saying been around? Send a criminal to jail, he comes out a better criminal. I mean, yeah. Now, was there a time when we had harder laws? We're harder on crime and criminals and crackdown. And yes, that makes a difference. 100% it does. But the reality is, there's always been people that don't give a fuck. They're the outliers. Their life is what their life is, and they're going to do what they're going to do. But when you have a society or a government that is soft on crime, you are going to have bigger problems. And again, I just want to get into it. For all of the different myriad of reasons that this stuff is happening, it is because one of the root catalysts is that we are losing our right to protect ourselves. And so now the other side of this is they restrict the ability to protect yourself. Now, I want to put a caveat in this because we study criminality and we study through external sources, Barry Holland and different individuals that study and understand and are, well versed in the legalities of Canadian law as it pertains to self-defense. And the reality is that case law has shown that as Canadian citizens, we do have the right to defend ourselves, but very few people understand how to navigate that system. Meaning they don't even understand how to articulate why they did what they did. Many people get into trouble not simply for the physical act of protecting themselves or their property, but what they say after opens up the window of opportunity for an example to be made of them, to send a message to other good Canadians that you cannot defend yourself. Like, there is absolutely a propaganda war that is going on. And so sometimes a good citizen, a good law-abiding man who defends himself or his property or his family, and he does it potentially in a way that is undeniably self-defense, but he says something and does something after the fact that ends up opening up the opportunity for him to be persecuted. And they will use that as an example. So here's the tie-in to what you had said, Dustin, and what Brad and I had mentioned. In Canada, we have concealed carry, but it is not with the firearm. The weaponized program is Canada's concealed carry. And I say this not in a self-serving way because it's our company. Any individuals out there that are offering training 100% exclusively towards violence and preparing Canadian citizens to defend themselves, to understand the realities of violence, who are studying criminality, who are teaching the 4 different types of predators and what their objectives are and how they are successfully committing assaults, murders, home invasions and stuff. If you are teaching the legalities and teaching good men to understand what they can and can't say, right, to understand how to articulate, how to identify threats, all of the different things that we do when it comes to weaponizing, here is the reality. This is the concealed carry that Canadian citizens have access to. It would be fucking phenomenal if they gave us the additional tool of being able to use a firearm. But we don't have that right. But even if they made concealed carry legal tomorrow, a very, very, probably almost statistically irrelevant portion of Canadian citizens would even be able to qualify or ever be able to qualify because it would take training. And you don't have it because most Canadian citizens have not been part of this conversation about protection of family and self and property separate from the police. They haven't been doing it. And so I'll throw this out there and it goes back. Here's the reality. If you think that concealed carry, and I'm not saying this is a wrong thought. if you think that concealed carry solves all of our problems, okay, then just for this analogy, the states has in certain states in the United States, they don't have any problems, I guess, because they can Texas concealed carry. Lots of states have concealed carry, which means that if you can concealed carry, and someone could say, well, they have less crime. Okay, let's just say that's all true. So they have it easy. So you know what that means? Soft men can defend themselves. Because you can have a guy who has no physical attributes. He has very poor understanding of all this stuff. I was looking today, concealed carry permits and courses in the States. I saw them on there for as low as online courses for $46 to qualify for your. Now, I'm sure you got to do your background check and stuff, but under $100. Almost every course I saw was under $100. Basic firearms handling, your basic CCW permits and requirements and paperwork and do this type of stuff. You could fucking do it online. So you could have a guy who's a very soft man absolutely qualify, purchase, and start carrying concealed. So let's just say, okay, that's what it is. In Canada, we don't have that right. So guess what this falls to? You need hard fucking men in Canada. Because Canadian men have to do it the hard way. This is kind of what it lends to what you said, Dustin. You can cry about why, and I don't have this, and they won't give me this, and they won't let me that. Soft men bitch and complain. That's all they fucking do. But the reality is we have unprecedented levels of violence here in Canada. The government is in no position to help you. They won't help you. The police cannot fucking protect you. They're not legally obligated to do it, and they can't do it anyhow. They have no way to stop that. So if and when someone wants to come and murder you, shoot you, and steal everything you fucking own, you are the only motherfucker that can stop them. And guess what? You don't get a fucking gun. You don't get a gun. Now, maybe you got a firearm. Maybe you can do it in your house. Maybe you don't get a gun. So soft men go belly up. Other men go, I don't give a fuck. Shut up and shovel. I'll shoot him anyway. Okay, so maybe you will, and maybe you'll go to jail for that. I don't know. Good. Do what you're going to do, man. That's your family. Make your fucking call. Now your wife has no husband, no protector, no provider. Your kids you're not there for your father, to be a father to your children. But maybe you saved them once. Someone will just come back and fucking take them down a month later. Every man's going to make his own decisions. But what I get at is that we have had soft times, which has made soft men here in Canada. And we don't have, and we're not going to have anywhere in the near foreseeable future, a hard answer where soft men can just go, I got a concealed carry, I got a firearm, we're all good here. Okay, I don't really want soft men out there armed anyhow. But I heard on this one podcast I was listening to where, again, most advocates for concealed carry and gun advocates in general for gun rights for Canadian citizens have never fucking ever said that they just want concealed carry for the masses. They said what they want is they give people a path. Mm-hmm. No matter how hard that path is, give us a path so that people that are serious and committed, hard men that are willing to put in the work, the time, the effort, the training, the money, can get to this position where they can carry concealed and be true life-saving forces in dark, critical moments for themselves, their family, and all Canadian citizens. And that is I'll stand up, a standing ovation for that. But we have concealed carry. Most of the guys that train with us do not look like ex-military, ex-police. They're fucking good men. I had a new guy that started who very much has, because he is ex-military, but he has the military soldier look. And everyone that he's met that trains with us, he's like, your guys are so unassuming, man. I would never fucking figure it out. That's the concealed carry. You know what I mean? It's good to have, when you work security, it's good to have a couple, have some show muscle. That's the guys that everyone's looking at, look at that big gorilla. That's the guy they think they're going to have to fuck with. But it's the quiet and unassuming motherfucker in the back. It's the Dalton who's working, who's running these, it's the cooler. That's, how will I know? You won't. I'll tell you when. But that guy, I thought you'd be bigger. Yeah, I've never heard that before. That's the concealed carry motherfucker. He's got the knowledge, man. He's got the skill set. He's got the tools, designed, expedient. Maybe he doesn't have the firearm in 99% of the situations. But he's recognized that. He's a hard-ass man, and he's done the fucking training to shore shit up. So I'll pause on that, but that's the thing. When you take away the rights, you create victims. So this has not been a national conversation for the last 10, 15, 20 years. This conversation is just starting over the last year and a bit. So we have a bunch of soft people. Because that creates victims. Because it creates dependency. It creates an expectation of protection from government, state, city, all that type of shit. We have not had that. But now as things are being peeled back, what we need is some really good hard men. I mean, the weaponized program, we are one of the only programs that I'm aware of in Canada. There are a few others, but you're talking, again, almost statistically irrelevant, that is 1,000% focused on training good men, physically, mentally, emotionally, legally, all of it, to be able to actually protect. This is the foundation of what a concealed carry course would be. The psychology, the physiology, the tactics, the strategies, the tools, all of it. You would need this type of skill set and training to actually qualify to carry, right, a concealed firearm. I have had more firearms instructors start coming to me because they're like, I'm one-dimensional. I'm skilled with a firearm and I'm lost without it. And they're like, it's unacceptable. And so now, and what shocks me is how the gaps aren't just in their physical capabilities. The gaps are in their understanding of lethal force, the legalities before and after. They haven't had access to guys like Barry Holland and programs like his. The gap in their ability to identify, understanding the PIN index and threat indicators, the understanding of any cohesive bad guy blueprint, understanding objectives. They don't know the 4 predator types. They don't understand their mission objectives for how they're successfully committing assaults. And it's like they are consuming this stuff at a high rate because they have very good training. They have good minds. They have all the stuff in the firearms. And they are assimilating this knowledge and growing as warriors, at an accelerated rate. And that is what we fucking need. And what I think and what I know is because my firearms training is at a very low base of understanding and functionality, but I don't need that much because it is, unfortunately, it is what it is in Canada. I have enough that if the gun's in play, in that certain situation where you can use it and all the fucking stars line up, that I'm proficient with that. But, if and when concealed carry ever hit Canada, these men, not only can they run the guns, but now they have this expanded, base. They're weaponized in an expanded way outside of just their domain. So I'll throw a bunch at you guys, unpack it and throw some stuff back.
One of the things that I can't really get past is, there's a lot of things at play. About this breeding ground of weak individuals, breeding ground of criminality and criminals that believe that they could do whatever the fuck they want, right? And this is something, and I think maybe a couple of things. So because of the way that where Canada is right now, there's a lot of things. There's government, there's bail reform. There's so many things in our country that are creating this ripe ecosystem where violent criminals are like, oh fuck, this is perfect. I could, nobody's gonna stop me. Nobody's gonna do anything. And it's one of those things. It's like, no motherfucker, I'm gonna do something. Yeah. Right? Because nobody is teaching them that their behavior and their actions has consequences. Because like we said in the intro and part of this conversation is like, well, the police aren't going to do anything. When they go to jail and whatever, they're out in a fucking week and they know more about, they become a better criminal. The government's not going to do anything, right? What do? They're literally saying, no. like, you guys don't have the right to defend yourself. So they're creating this breeding ground for criminals to be like, oh, there's nothing that they could do. So who's going to change that behavior? If nobody else is going to change it, it needs to be the citizens. It needs to be good men and good women and people that say, hey, no, fuck you. My life is worth it. I'm going to defend myself, my loved ones, my property from violent criminal assault, because nobody else is going to change that behavior.
Yeah.
And, it's just one of those things is like, I think that with the combination of, this society is breeded weak men, and the fact that we are tolerating way too much fucking bullshit behavior, that it's just escalating the situation. And like, if someone comes to assault my family, it's not the police and it's not the authorities that are gonna make that guy stop. It has to be me. Nobody's, like, we say this all the time, nobody's coming to save you.
Yeah.
So who's going to stop them? Are you going to be at the mercy of them? No, you can't be. But you can be.
Yeah.
It's not where you want to be.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think that there's so many things that have created just this ripe environment for them to be like, criminals just be like, what the fuck are you going to do? And right now, they're 100% right.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? Because most people are going to do nothing.
Dustin, I'll let you jump in, then I got a couple extra points here.
Yeah, I'll share a conversation I had just a couple of days ago. It was a brief one, but I was asked, maybe being in Canada is kind of, if a gunman came into a school today and somebody was there and someone stood up to them and stopped them. And we didn't even get into the total details of like, did the gunman get killed, whatever, but it doesn't really matter, because the gist of it, the question was, what would happen to them? Like, what do you think? What do I think would happen to the person who stopped the gunman? And then I think the person kind of expected like a really short and sweet answer of like, they'll be fine, it's totally allowed, or they're screwed, they're going to jail. And I think they literally thought like, it's this or that. Which one is it? What do you think? And I obviously came at it from the background that we have studying violence. And I'm like, there's so much more to it than that. And I'm like, yes, you have the benefit of the doubt that a gunman in the school, it's fairly reasonable, based on history, that there's probably some ill intent there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, so that's there. But at the same time, I'm like, but now we got to get into like, well, what did you do to stop him? How far did you go? All of that stuff. And I'm like, and then I get into like the whole thing of like the PIN index, the threat cues, the body language, interpersonal communication, behaviors. I'm like, where are they on the aggression continuum? How high are they escalating? Like, if you don't understand all of that, to be able to articulate it after you do whatever it is you did, I'm like, that will determine what happens to you. I'm like, Canada, the States, I'm like, it's not that simple. I'm like, there's all these other little details that you have to understand. And they're like, oh, you could like, just tell like they'd never, just had no idea. It just wasn't, they just don't know because they've not done any training like that. And it was not on their radar. And it was like, you could just see like the epiphany of like, oh my God, there actually is a lot to this stuff, right? It's just one example. And again, maybe not quite as hard to figure out in that setting, but still all that stuff is super important. It's everything that you've been saying.
It's huge. It's huge. See, this is where I make the argument that a weaponized man is the concealed carry in Canada. Because look at let's take the context of an active shooter. And I had part of one of the points I wanted to make is this. Many times when I have people come in, and this is irrelevant of whether they're firearms trained or not. But I use this as an example because if they have had firearms training, and especially a significant level of it, where they are considered to be moderate to high levels of proficiency with the firearm, I produce a scenario in front of them. So I run a scenario. And of course, I do the scenario because think of it like a shoot-no-shoot drill. So I run the scenario, and this is just a quick 25-second scenario. Not even that. Many times it's 15 seconds. I run this scenario, and in the scenario is designed for them to engage, to go tactical, so to do the shoot. So that means they have to engage. And they have to engage up to and including lethal force. So scenario is run. They make the right decision. They execute, they engage what would be in the realm of utilized lethal force. And now the scenario's done. The whole thing happens in under 20 seconds. And then I take a piece of paper, to take a pen, I hand it to them to say, now justify and explain why you did what you did. See, you did what you did. You have the physical skill sets to be able to protect, potentially, take life to preserve life. Tell me what you did. And you know what I get? Nothing. Blank looks in my face. Well, I did it because you were really mad. You came towards me, and I had no choice. And it's like that right there. Pause that. I take their piece of paper and I show this to them and say, that's what you're going to go to court with. That's what they're going to use to charge you with, to figure out whether or not they can charge you or not charge you. They want to make an example of you. Like everybody says, fuck it, you do anything, you're going to jail. Here's the thing. Those same people say that the criminals get nothing. They let them go. For these criminals that murder and drug addict, all this stuff, they just get tossed out. They're not facing any any real time. Perfect. So when you kill them, you don't worry about it. You're not going to do any real time anyhow because the whole system's fucked. If they're spitting out criminals, they're going to spit you out too, motherfucker. And yeah, they're going to take you through the press and stuff like that. Like that's what's going to happen, But it's like, again, it's like they just argue themselves. It's like you paint yourself in a corner to say, I can't do anything, so I'm not doing anything. Weak men blame and complain. Weak men are paralyzed by the what ifs of what might happen. A guy breaks into my house, I can't do nothing because then I'm going to get charged. You just watched your wife get fucking raped as they duct taped you and forced you to watch. What's worse? You're telling me you're scared of the press charging you? You fucking pussy. You're a soft fucking pussy. This is what happens. People get home invasions and the fucking husband gets tied up while they fucking gang rape the wife in front of him. You don't think that's happened? You think that's only in fucking movies? Fucking doom on your thinking, man. 30 years of dealing with people that have been the victim of violent crimes and you have no fucking idea what happens when you put yourself at these people's mercy. But you complain about, well, then they're going to charge me. Yeah, they might. But hard, man, if it's hard, do it fucking hard. Like, what are you going to do? That's easy fucking time if you get convicted because at least when you were there, you didn't let that shit go down in front of you unfucking attested. Right? Like, but the point is, they cannot explain why they did what they did. And then they're like, well, what do you mean? And then I just take a piece of paper and I write down the 7 different fucking physical body language cues that tell you that I was at high escalation. I can write down all 7, I can write down 14. There were 7 that were moderate at when I was in escalation phase, and then those mutated to the 7 that now revealed I was in crisis phase and imminent grievous bodily harm was there. Like, I can go through the communication. Like, I'm feeding them 23 different threat cues that are based off science, defendable in a court of law. If you could articulate these fucking all these cues, body language, communication, behavioral cues that tell everybody beyond reasonable doubt that you were justified in assuming imminent grievous bodily harm or death was coming, and that's why you did what you did. This is what keeps your actions in the realm of self-defense. Otherwise, if you can't articulate that, it gets pushed and spun and twisted into punishment. Because that's the line. The idea of you're talking about an active shooter scenario, a guy walks into a school with a gun and he starts unloading into kids. And while he's actively shooting kids, you pick up a fucking letter opener off the desk and plunge it through his fucking head and you kill him. Well, in that moment, he was actively engaged in murdering young children. You have a far, higher likelihood of that all happened in the realm of self-defense, but you still have to be able to articulate what happened. I mean, unless, of course, it's all caught on camera and other people can then put together the defense for you and all this stuff. But if you tackle this guy and this guy hits the ground and the gun goes flying, and now as you got him down, he pops back up and he starts running for the door, not for the gun, and you take the letter opener and plunge it into the side of his neck, you're going to have you got to be able to articulate, why did you do that? Was his hand going for his waistband and it was reasonable for you to believe that he had another weapon on him? Did you believe or see any indications or thought that he might have explosive devices and was moving to a secondary location? I saw him running for the door, but saw a massive duffel bag outside, which I believed was full of other firearms or whatever it was. Like, there's the details fucking matter, because otherwise they're going to say, yeah, this guy was an active shooter, but there was a point when self-defense was legal and there's a point when it went to punishment. Now, the other side of all that is, what state were you in physiologically and psychologically? Were you in condition black and susceptible to tunnel vision and vasoconstriction and auditory exclusion and all of these different things that are going on? That's concealed knowledge. This is knowledge that has been concealed from the Canadian public for fucking, generations. So the point is, when I say that the weaponized program is Canada's concealed carry program, because if and when concealed carry of a firearm becomes legal, this training organization will be we won't be first to market, but we will be teaching, or we will instantaneously partner with companies that are highly qualified to provide the right training and licensing. And our training will integrate with theirs, because then that now becomes another tool. But we're not sitting back waiting for that. Let me throw this next question. They are pushing hard, right? There is a movement that is pushing very hard to keep the heavy restrictions on firearms in Canada, to take Canadians' guns, to definitely prevent Canadians, as Justin Trudeau said, it is legal in Canada to own a firearm for hunting and sports shooting and all this stuff, but it is not legal for Canadians to have or possess a firearm for the purpose of self-defense. And he's proud of that fact. Whatever. The point is, if they pushed and have restricted that, and the training that we provide is the equivalent training of concealed carry when it comes to psychology, to legal understanding, the physical strategy, tactics, and tools, is it not then conceivable that at some point in time this training becomes prohibited as well? Now, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But what I can tell you is that if there is truly, like most people believe, this massive push to create more and more victims in Canada, to pull away more and more of our rights, that means that they want to deny access to good Canadians, law-abiding Canadians, to receive this type of training, which dramatically increases our ability and capability to protect and defend ourselves. And this is not out of the realm of possibility. We can look at other countries and look at certain times when any type of real world, combative training has been prohibited or banned, which has pushed it underground. So, I mean, at this point in time, when we're facing unprecedented levels of violence, and we're sparking this national conversation on how we as Canadian citizens protect ourselves and property separate from the police, yet we understand that the government is, right now at this point in time, soft on crime, trying to reduce the rights of Canadians. It seems to reduce the rights of Canadian citizens to protect themselves. Man, we should have good men flocking to this type of training, because it is very conceivable that in a number of years, or you never fucking know, this knowledge that we're sharing could become prohibited. There is already algorithms at play that take any type of marketing and advertising that I do, that take this podcast and suppress it from reaching more and more good people. Right? I've had guys that subscribe to this channel, follow this channel religiously, and they keep getting unsubscribed from the channel. It just keeps pushing them off. Never happened with anything else they follow, and yet they keep getting bumped off. Our numbers go up, our numbers go down. Our numbers go up, our numbers go down. So these conversations, which we believe we have the freedom to listen to what we want to listen to, and you cannot suppress free speech. Okay, yeah, but they can. They can severely restrict how many people ever hear this message.
Yeah, because that's a very different type of free speech, right? You can go out on the street corner and say all you want, and then they won't take that away from you right now.
Right now.
But like you said, but now when you're putting this through all these different models and platforms, it's like, yeah, read the fine print. Do you know what I mean? Like, it ain't up to you at the end of the day. Oh no, but I pay them. Who cares?
They don't give a fuck.
not good enough. Do you know what I mean? So that's the thing. Like, whether it can be easily prohibited by a government, let's say, maybe not like across the board easy prohibited, But yeah, by denying people access without them ever knowing they're being denied access, 100%. That's so easy for them to do.
Yeah. Well, I'll just put one more point down range because you guys remember this, but a number of years back, I had a very high level, a high volume of a certain law enforcement organization that is close in proximity to where I live, if not where I live. And the individuals that are responsible for providing training to these law enforcement officers actively tried to ban members from coming to receive this type of training. They tried to ban them from doing this, despite they were coming on their own time and their own dime as free citizens, not coming as representatives of of this police force. And yet, police members could freely go train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Thai boxing or any other martial art they wanted. They could go join any gyms they wanted. They could do anything they wanted. But they specifically sent out a letter to all officers and all of their personnel saying, you are not allowed to go and receive this type of training. And then there was, thankfully, a massive pushback from the members because they were like, fuck you. You can't fucking tell me where I can go on my own time and what I can fucking do as my interests and hobbies and do whatever. Fuck you. And then it led to a conversation, a phone call that I had directly with them, and simply broke down to making them look bad because providing a training at a depth and level and intensity that they simply could not match. And they can't match it because they don't have somebody who spent 30 years of their life training this stuff. You know, they have somebody who got certified to teach a train the trainer course and has 20 hours of experience in, and you know what I mean. But like, so I've already experienced blackballing and banning from within organizations that are fucking exactly the organizations that this stuff was designed and built for originally, which is part of the reason why, you know, I said fuck you to all that shit. And just was like, I want to train good fucking men, free men, you know, that, you know, are waking up and going, fuck this shit, man. I don't want to be a soft man anymore. You know, my newest slogan that I love, the thing I say all the time is the government won't protect you, the police can't protect you, and your fucking wife shouldn't have to. But for a lot of men in these situations, they better hope their wife's there and on fucking board because they're going to need some serious fucking help. I feel really bad for their children. I mean, let's look at a study they did, you know, I think it was 7 or 8 months ago. Most men overestimate their ability to defend or protect by 4,000%.
Oof, wow.
4,000%. There's video of the study where they're going up and asking men, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being extremely capable and 1 being, you know, no capability at all, where do you think you'd fall? And men were like 8, 9, 7, 9, 8, 10. And then they say, could you show us 30 seconds of what it would look like? And it was fucking ridiculous. And most men, when they say, can you show us 30 seconds of anything that you might do to defend yourself or even just talk for 30 seconds about what your plan would be, I think it was like 83% of men did nothing, couldn't even do it. They just were, oh, well, you know, like in the situation, you know, it all depends. Not right now. I got a shoulder. I got it. You know, it's just 4,000 fucking %. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of wives.
That's conservative. That's conservative.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, you know what I mean? And again, like, I just want, you know, this is the whole message we keep trying to push out. I don't care where you get the training from. I don't care. But you got to get some fucking training. And what you have to do is you have to accept the realities that, listen, the concealed carry in Canada right now is the fucking knowledge, the strategies and tactics. A man has to be able to fucking handle himself. I'll hit you with just one last tagline. I was going to do a whole separate podcast on this, but I'm just going to tie it into this, and maybe this will start where we start, you know, bringing it in for landing a little bit. But I would have titled this podcast, When the Tool's Bigger Than the Man. Because all of this, the talk about the gun or a talk about a knife or a talk about, you know, I got a bat under my bed or whatever it is, the reality for all of this stuff is that when you're talking about, let's say, again, concealed carry, just to keep this unified, You know, there may be a day come, maybe somewhere in the very, very, well, there may be a day come where, like in the States, you can take $100 course and get and qualify for your concealed carry permit, qualify through all the background checks. Remember, to pass a background check, doesn't require any skill sets. Requires no conditioning, requires no understanding of the legalities, no understanding of physiology. You don't have to develop mental toughness. You don't have to have an inner control box. You don't have to perform under pressure through scenario. Like you don't have to do anything other than just don't have a criminal record. All of these types of things. Mental health checks, all this stuff. So maybe there's a day when we can, it is easy to get a concealed carry permit. Fairly easy to buy a firearm and ammunition. But that's going to lead to other problems when you have soft people armed. So the one thing that is an indisputable fact, and anybody that is serious about firearm ownership, any of the guys that I know, whether it's in the States or Canada here, that are, just absolutely formidable with a firearm, if not even tactical or surgical. The man is bigger than the tool. The gun is not the weapon. These people have a fucking mindset. They have a killer instinct. They have a fucking discipline. They have an understanding of the legalities and physiology. They study criminality. They study tactics. They train relentlessly. They have plans in place. They have all types of, kind of things that would de-escalate or prevent ever being in that situation in the first place. And if and when it ever resorts or falls to where they must physically engage, the man is much bigger than the fucking tool. And I don't care whether that tool's a gun, a knife, a bat, I don't care what it is, or just the empty hands, using expedient weapons. This is what weaponizing does. I truly believe that what we are doing here is one of a very small number of training organizations that are the foundation for concealed carry in Canada. Because I really believe that concealed carry has to start well before the tool. It has to start well before the firearm. And whether that's knifed and impact and edged and whatever it is that you might have, because there's lots of tools that we don't need to carry for the purpose of self-defense. We can carry them for the multitude of other purposes that we may need them for. Cutting seatbelts in accidents, prying doors open, cutting open your kid's fucking, latest toy out of the Christmas package. There's lots of reasons why we carry different tools. And in dark, critical moments, those tools may also come into play for other reasons. The point is, though, the man's got to be bigger than the tool. And in Canada, you got to do it the hard way, right? We don't have the soft way. We don't have the easy way. And I'll just say this, then I'm going to let you guys throw your stuff downrange. My latest ad, where I talk about more in depth about the mother and daughter that were so brutally murdered just over a year ago, and how this is a sign of a much bigger problem when you have murders like this, atrocities like this happening in your city. It is not a one-off. This is a sign of a much bigger problem. And I go in and expand the problem, much like we're talking about today. And here's the interesting thing. In a matter of 5 days, that ad has almost 1,000 engagements of likes, support, yes. It has just under 200 comments. And I would say 90% of those comments are men who are repeating themselves of concealed carry, fuck Trudeau, Trudeau should be tried, he killed those people, bitching and complaining. I'm not saying these are false statements. I'm not saying I don't agree with these comments. But 1,000 engagements, 200 comments, right? People like, fuck this situation. About 30 requests for more information, and one guy who's come in to meet, who is serious about pursuing training. We have a country full of very soft men, where this is their best weapon. And then they do a lot of this. And they do a lot of bitching. They do a lot of rationalizing and justifying. I get a lot out of the 30 videos and people respond. Love it. Love what you're doing, brother, man. Stay with it. Super busy right now. Super busy. In the spring, things are really going to calm down for me. I just got so much stuff with the wife and kids going on that it's just not the best time for me now. But I love it, man. Yeah. When your hands are bound and you're watching your wife get gang raped, all of those things you had that kept you busy that were so important are going to be fucking ridiculous to you. Like, they don't even fucking matter. But this is it, because it's so easy to just say, we need this, we need that, he did this, they did that. That's just a sign of soft people. That's at the end of the day, it's like, and I've had men get mad at me for saying that. Oh, I'm just talking about this. Like, talk all you want, man, but that's it. But you got to do something more than talk. And what's always interesting is the guys that talk the loudest and hardest, I love clicking on their profiles. And you just go to their Facebook pages or different things, and you get a real quick insight into their life and who they are and what they're doing. What are you doing? There's no action steps. They're not doing anything. They're bitching and they're fucking complaining. They're looking for a soapbox to stand on and other people to listen to them. And it's just a bunch of hot fucking air. You know what I mean? So I could not be in more agreement with the major organizations that are pushing and fighting for Canadians to keep our rights, firearms, to access to firearms, to push for, better training, trying to push us towards concealed carry. But they're saying the same thing. Hey, no one's saying make it easy, but just give good Canadians a fucking path. Well, there is a path. And it might not end with concealed carry in the literal sense yet, but start walking the path so if and when that day comes, you are fucking prepared and ready to take that step, and you are truly a weaponized force. Because you need more than just the gun. All right, so I don't know if you guys want to throw something in addition to that.
Yeah. Tony Robbins has a saying about money and donating. You guys have heard it. It's that saying of, if you won't give a dime out of $1, you wouldn't give 100,000 out of 1,000,000, right? And so his whole point is, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, right? If you won't make a little donation now because you have a little bit of money now, don't think you're going to make the big one later, because this is not realistic. It's not how people operate. Yeah. And the same goes for what we're talking about. You can't say like, oh yeah, if we ever get concealed carry for guns, well then I would be doing all the training. I'd do everything I had to do to get that permit. And it's like, bullshit. No, you wouldn't. Because the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. If you won't train with the tools you have access to now, you wouldn't train with the tools you'd have access to later. So I don't believe it. Like you said, it's where's the action steps? There has to be something. Something has to be happening now, or I don't believe you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I think for me, you made a comment about like, hey, like, yeah, we in this country, like our prime minister literally comes out and says, Canadians cannot use a firearm to defend themselves. So, like, is it something that is reasonable to assume? Like, it could be in our future where defending yourself, period, is off the table. And, it makes me really think about that type of action, or that type of implementation of a legal system where good men like us, good men like a lot of people that watch and train, that are just looking to defend themselves. And then you go into like, okay, well, we have a hardwired survival motor program that we're born with, that, we have within us to survive against violence, against threats, against dangers, against all these things. Like, that's part of our nature. And it's like, so why are we taking the good people and, not letting them be who they are naturally? Like, of people, someone like breaks in your house, like naturally as a man and as a woman, like you talk to any of our wives, it's like someone tries to come in and take my baby, it's like you you're in trouble. Yeah. But that's that maternal instinct. That's easy. Well, that's easy to explain because that's a woman that has that maternal instinct. But we have that instinct as men to defend and protect because that's hardwired into us. So it's like you're taking the ability for people to get rid of that. And then you're also, it's almost like, well, how do we like men are becoming weak. So that's getting programmed out of them. Yeah. Something that is so deeply rooted in how we are naturally, what we are born with. Like that's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, and I think that just off ramps right into what I'm talking about like I genuinely now look at the training we're providing as the starting point for concealed carry in Canada, right? Because all the skill sets, the knowledge, the mindset, the legalities, everything that we're doing are all the precursors that you would need warriors and weaponized men to have that would lead them into the firearms training. So if and when that day comes, you need to be prepared. Like this is your prerequisite training, right? And again, the measure of a man, the man's got to be bigger than the tool. Do you know what I mean? Like any you guys have been around some of these guys too, and the guys we've been around that are special forces and have been in combat and taken lives and done all that stuff. They're massive men, and I'm not talking about their physical stature. I'm talking about like they're intelligent men, they're well-spoken men, they're well-rounded men. They're they're critical thinkers. They're open, they're adaptive. They're like, they regulate. Like they're fucking massive men in the sense that no matter what tool they put in their hands, the man is much bigger than the fucking tool. They're not driven by the tool. It's a gun to them is not an extension of their fucking penis, right? They're just bigger than that. And how did that come about? Well, it come about because they had millions of dollars and thousands of hours put into the development of that man. That's called the training process. And training for war and preparing men for war is different than preparing men for sport fighting or martial arts training. And just like the preparation of men to protect themselves, their family, and their property against criminal violence at levels, intensity, and frequency that is unprecedented in our country, it's a different process. And that's the process that we offer. So, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a way to frame this for people that hopefully that they can understand that they just need to, we need to do it this way. And I'm going to end it with this because yet another example, but I just didn't know if you guys had heard this or not, but 66-year-old Orland Peterson, the grandfather, who is just in rural Saskatchewan, and this is just a couple months back, and gets up, 66 years old, gets up, heads to work, driving to his work site. Gets to his work site. He's the first on site. He's filling up all the gens, the light gens and stuff, and getting things up. And all of a sudden, a vehicle comes fucking flying in, and armed men jump out, and basically, smack him in the fucking head with the butt end of the gun. They got him on his knees. This guy's like praying for his life, thinking this is it. Ultimately, pick him up, put him in a back shed that they have there. They steal his truck, his tools, and his wallet. And when he gets him in the shed, the guy says, "Sorry, bud, I got to shoot you," and basically shoots him point blank execution style and leaves him for fucking dead. Amazingly, as he turned his body to the left, he took the blast and was able to walk over a fucking kilometer to find help and ultimately lived. And his son's an RCMP officer. His son actually got the call and responded to the crime scene, not knowing fully yet that it was actually his dad that was the victim. Again, another story over people willing to execute somebody, a 66-year-old grandfather, over what? His truck, some tools in his truck, and his wallet. Like, it over fucking nothing. And, again, this is just more and more Canadians are waking up to the physical reality, the cold hard fact that we as Canadian citizens now have to start having this conversation and start taking some serious action separate from the government and the police. It's obviously within the confines of what we can do in Canada here legally, but separate from the police to protect ourselves from murder, assault, and theft. So this is the mission. This is what the weaponizing process is. I believe that this is the impetus, or this is the precursor, at least the foundational knowledge and skill sets you need, so that if and when concealed carry with a firearm becomes legal in Canada, we have people that are weaponized. We have people that there's a foundation built, and we can snap that right on top of this foundation and just have a way Canadians would have a capacity to defend themselves greater than any other point in history. That's kind of the mission that we're on here. So, but it's got to start somewhere, and it's got to start with the realities of where we're at. So, okay, guys. I guess we'll finish it there unless anything else sparked off this, but otherwise we'll wrap it up here. Okay, awesome. Great conversation, guys. Thank you for anyone that was listening to this. Again, this is just such a hot, topic right now that, please feel free to share, comment, because I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this. But other than that, we just want to thank you, as we said earlier. The only way that we get this message out is by you guys liking, sharing, commenting, because that's the only thing that can push back against the algorithms that don't want people to hear these conversations, don't want people to have access to this knowledge and skill set. And I'm going to end it this way today. Take advantage of what is here right now, because if and when the day comes where this type of training is restricted, prohibited, where they do, and there's lots of ways they can make this very, very difficult to get this type of training out. They're already doing it with marketing on a marketing front where it's just it's very, very difficult to reach people. So you liking, sharing, commenting, talking, that's how we do this. Without you guys, we're dead in the water. So that's what it is, man. Power's in the people. Okay, so that is it. Stay safe, stay weaponized. Chat again soon, everybody. Thanks, guys, for your time tonight. I appreciate it.